Well, Nebraska's coming off a big time recruiting week and weekend with a few commits coming into the boat after 20 visit. Actually, I said coming into the boat again. Sorry, guys. I had somebody make a comment about that. That's a PJ Fleck term. I won't use the boat reference anymore. Apologies. Um, but 20 visitors visiting in June. We're starting to see the fruitions and the fruits of the labor come to be with some of these commitments that we're getting in. And, I brought in a guest here, Coach BA from the BA's Coaches Show, as you can see there, to talk about it and break it all down with you. So, Coach BA, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to the crowd and let them know where they can find you and what you got going on.
Oh, awesome. Hi. I just want to say thank you for having me on.
Of
You
course.
can find me basically on all the social medias, YouTube, Spotify, at the BA Coaches Show. I'm on pretty much every platform. It's the same username. Basically, on my channel, what I just do is I talk Husker sports and try and break it down from a high school football coach's perspective and someone that lives, breathes, and dies football a lot of times. Just kind of try and break it down from that perspective. So I've had a really good month and starting to, talk to some people and make some good connections in the Husker fan base. So it's been really fun.
Absolutely. And of course, Generation Red podcast is in here. BA Coach is a
Oh yeah.
BA. Should be a fun hour of great content. Yeah. So, a lot of inside information in terms of just the X's and O's and the
Mhm.
football side of things. So we're going to kind of give you a little bit of breakdown and some of these players, and then we'll go into a Q&A. If y'all have any questions, go ahead and drop them into the chat, and we will get to them as soon as we can. But loaded show here, and we'll go ahead and just start it off with the um, offensive line commits. Brian Tapu, of course, Brian Tapu coming over from New Zealand. One of those stories that kind of we've got thrown a curveball a little bit in the mix, that typical
Mhm.
recruiting nightmare that you prepare for, but then it comes, but then it was easily mitigated. But yeah, Brian Tapu, just a very raw prospect, comes from the tackle position. He's going to be one of those guys that he is very raw, needs refinement, needs a lot of work as mechanics. Only played football only a year, very short time.
Mhm.
But what you can see from him is he's got a lot of punch, which in punch
Mhm.
and with the offensive line, that is basically kind of how they extend out, as you know, how they kind of extend out and their
Yeah.
initial punch out there with their hands. So he's got good hands, good feet, and things like that. But brings a lot to this offensive line. Have you had a chance to kind of look at any of his stuff, and what do you think about it?
Oh yes, I've watched a little bit of him once. I thought we were going to get him. Then he ended up committing to Oregon State for a little bit, and then we got him
Yeah.
back. I think that he's a guy that obviously has all the physical tools to be an absolute stud. I think if we once he's in Lincoln for two or 3 years with Coach Raiola and Coach Campbell, our strength and conditioning coach, I feel like he can be a massive problem at tackle for us. A problem as in like giving the defenses problems.
Yeah.
Um, I think physically he holds everything, and I do. We can kind of talk about it, but I think Coach Raiola has done a fantastic job at developing our offensive line, and I think he, talent-wise, just pure size and athleticism, could be one of the better ones in this class or the class that we're bringing in right now. I think he potential-wise is way up there.
Agreed. Yeah. He's, big in stature, very strong kid. And like you
Mhm.
said, it just really more so just get him in the college strength and conditioning program. It's
Yeah.
it's one of the hardest positions, in my opinion, the hardest, and I say this a lot, is to play as a true freshman as offensive line.
He, mhm.
And especially for somebody who has not played a lot of football, but the fact that he was able to, come on as a D1 recruit says a lot about his abilities, and had a couple of,
Yeah.
big schools looking at him. So
Mhm.
Brian Tapu is in, ton of power. Excited to see what Raiola can do with him. And then Houston, Catan. Well, just going into the story about Tapu.
Yeah, I was gonna. Yeah, I'm kind of wanting to ask you. Like, you would know a lot more than me. Like, I follow recruiting, but more so like once I know we're getting these guys for sure. Just because I only have so much brain power following it on 100 recruits, I just don't have the time or
For
effort for
sure.
that. You
Yeah,
know what
yeah.
I mean? So
Yep.
I thought my just outside perspective here. I thought whenever he had his official visit, it sounded like when he left Lincoln that we were feeling really good about that. And then it seemed like we were kind of surprised he was committed to Oregon State, and then that flipped. So I think you would have a better perspective of me than like what happened there.
Yeah, so essentially, his uncle coaches over at Oregon State. So
Mhm.
basically, what had happened is what he said is he went out there to Oregon State. and it's very easy to do this. I said this when Raiola committed to Georgia as the reason why I thought he committed there was it's very easy to get caught up in the pomp and circumstance
Hmm.
of an official visit. They're rolling out the red carpet and they're giving you, and you got family there and all this other stuff. So it's one of those things where he kind of made a rash, and this is in his words, a rash decision, if I can talk, to commit to Oregon State. And when he got back and was able to think about it in a little bit more detail, he essentially decided that, Nebraska was where his heart is, and it's where he talked with his family. His family really thought that was the best place for him. And, it seems like Nebraska was where he wanted to be, but going to Oregon State, it kind of just put his mind in a little bit of a, just a confusing spot. And
Hmm.
again, it's a kid from New Zealand. He's still learning out these processes and stuff like that. So, yeah, people were talking about NIL. I don't like when people jump straight to NIL
Yeah.
because that's not always the case, and it's not always good to throw out there for these kids to see, because when he decommitted from Oregon State, he actually had to put out a second tweet because they were jumping on him so bad that this is not an NIL thing. Like,
Yeah.
this wasn't a money thing. And so, these kids see that, and he seems like such a nice guy, when hearing
Hmm.
him talk and stuff like that. So it's one of those things that he's a little bit chastised for that, but overall, like, the decision sounds like Nebraska is where he wants to be and ultimately will be. So I don't think
Yeah.
we'll have any more issues with him potentially flipping or
Yeah.
anything like that in the future
Hey,
either.
I feel really good about the outcome. I don't care the journey we got to get here. He ends up in Lincoln. I'm all good with it for me,
100%.
you know?
100%. As long as he stays, yeah, as long as he stays there, and I think he will. So
And that's the thing I think that people need to remember, that we're dealing with 17, 18-year-old kids
100%.
in
Yeah.
this. And I mean, I'll tell you, just kids that I've coached have made like crazy, recruiting decisions, even just like at smaller schools. Like, I haven't sent anyone to the Power 5 level, but like
Yeah.
even just going to go visit it, like, these are 17, 18-year-old kids. Like, think about when you were 17, 18 years old, how easily swayed could you have been on things like that, especially your family pulling at you, which it sounds like it was probably a little bit of the case. It's
Yeah.
like, think about how, I mean, hey, I'm not that old now. I change my mind on things all the time. Now imagine when I was 17, 18 years old, how many times I flip-flopped.
I
So
signed
I don't hold it against them. You know what I mean?
Not at all. I signed my life away at 17. I joined the military. I knew from a young age I wanted to go in the military. My mom had to sign the paperwork for me. I had to convince her. But yeah, so, like, I signed my life away. So good on him for and these kids for weighing out their options and trying to make the decision
Yeah.
that's best for them. So, but yeah, like you said, they are 18-year-old kids, and we made bad decisions back then, but
Yeah.
it's not really a bad decision. They're just figuring out what they want to do with the rest of their career. It's like a job. A job
Yes.
offers you one, and then another one comes in and offers you more money. You're going to consider it at the very least.
Yeah, 100%.
So, I think that'll just get me into the first question I want to ask you, kind of about the offensive line.
Mhm.
Why do you think the O line is in a really good position this year to improve? And why do you think that kind of the right pieces are in place to make that jump that we've been expecting from this offensive line?
Well, I think number one with our offensive line, it really starts with Coach Raiola. Like, so when I think back, if you look at that last year with Frost, right, in 2022, how bad did we think that offensive line was? Like,
Yeah,
I remember, like, they were, I'm just gonna, they were not very good. They were bad, right? And then with, I mean, not all, but a lot of those same, key players. Like, think about the huge step forward 2023. Like, although they maybe not have been like the best or like the star position group on the team, like, they took a gigantic step forward in last season, I thought personally. And a lot of those key players are back in 2024. Like,
yeah,
having Ben Scott, that's huge. Having Bryce Benhart back is going to be huge. I'm really interested to see how Teddy Prohaska does. If he can stay healthy, I think physically he has a lot of the tools to be able. He's got to be able to put it all together. So I
yeah,
think when it comes to that, it's just the development that Coach Raiola has been able to do. um, I think with a whole nother year, I don't see why there's any reason why they can't be. Honestly, outside of Dylan Raiola, you take the one player out of it, the unit that I'm looking forward to see the most how they do this year is honestly the offensive line. And
yeah,
that's just how I feel about it.
yeah. I agree, because I think they were much maligned, last season. But looking at what they did year over year, the progression was
Hmm.
it was noticeable. They
Yeah.
they they did take a huge jump. And it was another thing why, I thought Donovan Raiola was unfairly, criticized when he got his raise because people thought it was from Dylan Raiola. I think a lot more people are tuning into the fact that he's a really good coach, and the fact that
Yes,
the
yes.
conversation around the offensive line has been improved this season, or this offseason especially, that people are starting to come around and realize what exactly he's doing.
Yes, because I remember when he was the only coach that stayed over from the previous regime, there
Yes.
was a lot of people say it's only for the one player. Then when
Yep.
Dylan originally was committed to Georgia, I saw some sentiment of being like, okay, does this mean we're going to get rid of Donovan? I'm like, what are you guys talking about? Like,
Yeah.
you think Coach Rule did all this for one player? Like,
No.
I don't know how much people like. I'm one of the biggest Matt Rule fans on the planet. I will just come out and say it. I've had the privilege of meeting the guy a few times. I'll say he won me over. So I understand that I'm biased on this. I do. But
Yeah.
he is, if you know anything about him, he's not going to mortgage in a position as important as the offensive line. That's where you win and lose games
Yes.
just to get one single player. So I think that the fact that he decided to keep Coach Raiola was a huge sign to people like, hey, maybe this guy knows what he's doing.
Yep.
Maybe you at home, maybe you don't know as much as Coach Rule. Like
Exactly.
there might be something here. So I think that was a really big telling sign. And then if you just again look at the development from 2022 into 2023, I
Yep.
really do think this group is going to be fantastic this year.
Yeah, I agree. And, with to your point about that with Matt Rule, he's made it known time and time again that and just in his actions, bringing over the same philosophies that built Baylor, that built Temple, bringing over those philosophies and still making them work. Um, it's he knows what he knows. He does what he does well and sticks to that. And that's not going to change for one player, like you said. That he's not
Yeah.
going to upend his progress and rebuild for a player that potentially might not even land. So, yeah,
Yes.
overall, really good stuff from him, especially lately on the recruiting front with the offensive
Mhm.
line.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
he seems to be killing it in offensive line recruiting.
well,
Um,
now, yeah, but we missed
yeah,
out on a
yeah,
couple, but like
yes,
there was a little bit
yes,
of a panic, but yes,
yes. I feel like he's doing a really good job. I feel like the Hawaii connection the last 2 years, having him has probably helped as well. At least that's my outside perspective.
yeah,
Since what 2 years in a row we've got the number one player in Hawaii. I think I
yep,
was reading that somewhere. So I feel like that's a good thing.
for sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, Tapu, number one player in
Hmm.
Hawaii. So, all right, let's move over to Jeremiah Jones. So
Mm-hmm.
Jeremiah Jones, another guy who committed this weekend, I believe it was 2 days ago, from Murray, Kentucky. Though a lot to be excited about Jeremiah Jones. Of course, we see the measurables:
Yeah, yeah.
6 foot, 6'6", listed at 6'4" on 24/7, but most people saying he's measuring at six
Hmm.
foot six. Just an explosive, rangy guy. But the thing is, versatility. Is one of those things where Matt Rule loves his versatility. And one of the things that drew Jeremiah Jones into Nebraska was the fact that Nebraska just wants him on campus. They don't necessarily have a position set for
Yeah,
him,
yeah.
but they do. He wants to play defense. They see him a little bit on the defensive side of the ball, but he was, met with both rooms, the wide receiver, the
Mhm.
safety, rover room. So he was able to go into both of those meetings, and he just wants to get to campus and see. Staff wants to get him out there and see what he can do with athleticism. And we've seen that with him moving guys around already, trying to find the best position for them. But I think he would be an exceptional defensive asset just with his
Oh,
ranginess,
I agree. I agree.
with his ranginess, his explosiveness, and just just to take it back, his junior season, he ran for 62, ran 62 times for 304 yards and 3 touchdowns, 22 catches for 326 yards and 2 touchdowns. He passed for or 54 for 102 on passes for 634 yards and 6 touchdowns, 66 tackles, 4 sacks, and 5 TFLs. So it's one of those things where it's like he does everything. And he
Yeah, yeah.
quarterback, running back, reminds me of Earl Thomas. I played against Earl Thomas in high school.
Mm,
Former, Seattle
yeah,
Seahawks safety. But that guy played everywhere. He played kick returner, punt returner, safety, quarterback, the whole nine. So those guys are just crazy athletes. And when they do finally hone in on one specific position at the college level, their potential's uncanny,
yeah.
untapped.
I feel like he is like exactly what Matt Rule wants. Just watching his
Yeah.
highlight tape, just seeing all the different things he did on the high school football coach in me was like, oh man, imagine if I could have one of these kids. You know what I mean?
Yep,
But
exactly.
man, I think he's exactly what Matt Rule wants. But I kind of agree with you. I personally just kind of looking at him, watching. I think he could be a fantastic safety for us. But I
Yeah,
think no matter where you put him on the field, I think he's an athlete and getting development in that one position with our. I really do think we have a great defensive staff right now, just top
yep,
to bottom. And I do. I think he could be a fantastic. But I kind of was looking at him as a safety. I feel like especially some of the like having a good safety that can go one on one with a receiver, like get kind of given some different looks, is a huge thing.
100%.
And I think he could I think he's obviously got the build to do it, and I think
Yep,
he's athletic enough to do it. So I think that would be a good spot for him. Kind of like a
100%.
strong safety for us. Is kind of what I was looking at.
Yeah, and Florida State worked him out at tight end.
Yeah, I was reading
And
that.
they said he killed it there. Just
Mhm.
so people know, too, his junior season, 97 tackles, 5 interceptions. Or
Mhm.
sorry, sophomore season. One of the reasons why his numbers regressed the following season too is because people started going to his side, which is another thing that people don't understand is like
Yes.
you stop
Yes.
targeting that side of the field when you have somebody who's that good over there.
Yes, I'll just say one of the players I coached this last season. He was one of the best defensive players I'd say in the state. I'm biased on that because I love the kid, but I'll say like if you just looked at his statistical numbers, you're
Yeah.
like, hey, he was only the second lead. I'm like, no, teams are running away from him. So
Yes.
that's the thing. Especially depending on where these kids are from, um, like their stats may not be as insane
Yep.
just because of high school coaches, hey, this kid's getting Power Five offers. He's looking at going to the Big Ten. Like,
Yeah.
we're not going to run at this kid, you know.
100%.
Or if he's lined up at wide receiver, like, hey, we're going to take this thing away. So I do
Exactly.
think that's something that I think watching the film's a lot bigger deal than just looking at the stats. Because I do think if you do look at his stats, you'd say, oh, they did his tackle numbers went down a little bit.
Yep. Agreed. Yeah. And that's a good point. Yeah. It's those little nuances of the game that looking at numbers won't give you. So
Hmm.
um and then Papa Smurf doesn't agree with us. Agree to disagree, Papa Smurf. All right. Agree to disagree. New look voice college football 2.0 in progress. Yes, absolutely. Appreciate you mentioning that, John. Just do want to bring everybody's attention. So, voice college football is kind of expanding the network on X, especially. We're trying to kind of revamp things. Let me get this frame off the screen here for y'all so y'all can see this. Kind of revamping things here. So I'm the graphics guy, so you can see we started out with the top 25 yesterday. Our profile picture is still loading. Twitter's still validating it since we changed
Mm.
our actual name. So we've got the top 25 that actually makes sense right here, and then we also have our top 10 head coaches rankings. So if y'all want to go, stay up to date on graphics and our rankings, my rankings are going to be dropping as well. TJ Ronan from the Michigan channel, John Diadamo, that you see the comment right there, and Mark Rogers. We're all contributors on that website. So go over there, check that out, give it a follow, and let us know what you think. So you can stay up to date with the latest rankings, shows, etc. So just wanted to throw that out there. I appreciate you bringing that in, John.
Hey, you guys are killing it.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you. That means a lot. It's a lot of work. There's been a lot of work going in.
Hmm.
So
Oh, I can tell just as someone who's trying to slowly start getting into this, I can tell just by looking at your guys' stuff how much you guys are putting into
yeah,
this.
so I appreciate that, man. Thank you. But yeah, like you said, it's a lot of work, and as you know, you've been grinding. You've been grinding here for a while, and you're starting to see kind of the fruits
Mhm.
of your labor pay off, and your channel starting to grow, like you were mentioned before. So,
I'll
who
say
would thought?
The Husker Army guys, I know this isn't true, but it made my heart feel really good, so I want to give them a shout out. They commented on a thing the other day. They said I was the fastest growing Husker football podcast. I know that's not true, but it still made my heart feel good.
I love it. I love it. You might be. I don't know. I don't know who's tracking it, but if they're tracking it, then you might be. So, John Dianimo, like number 6. All right, yeah, make sure y'all like the stream. It really helps me out and get some traction here so y'all can get everybody in here to see Coach BA. Again, I want to show a lot of what he has to offer on his channel and bring y'all some of his insights so you can go check out his stuff. Generation Red Podcast, love the new look to the stream. Much appreciated. Hadley Booze, hey, howdy, hey, what's going on? Hadley, do you see another holy cow? We got him commit coming for the 2025 class. So I think my holy cow commit that would be top 20 or in this class, as I do think that if we could get, either Christian Jones to or Chase Lofton to kind of flip, and then Christian Jones to also come I believe landing but Chase Lofton going to Florida State, that's going to be really tough to get him to flip. But those are the guys that are really like the holy crap guys, because it doesn't look like we're going to get Olafatuli. I think he would be another just a 5-star offensive lineman. So Olafatuli would be a huge get. So I think just looking at one player, probably him. Just because, again, focusing on the offensive line a little bit more and being able to land a 5-star after missing out on guys like David Sanders, et cetera. So it would be nice, but Nebraska's not in the driver's seat, so that would be a shock to me. So, but we'll see. Like these recruiting processes, again, things change daily, things change weekly, things change hourly.
Yeah.
We never know. So, all right. So appreciate the question, though. Appreciate you hopping in here, Ken. And then, yeah, go check out the Generation Red podcast over there. Names aside, QBX is a 5-star incoming freshman. QBY is a Heisman equivalent and national champion with 2 years of college experience. Who would you start? Who is better right now?
Okay, I think I knew who we're talking about here. I know we put the X and Y, but I think it's pretty.
yeah. So Raiola and Jalen Gramstead, of course, is who he's talking about. But names aside, I still think here's how you got to look at it. And I'll get your take on this in just a second. You got a 5-star QB coming in, and Matt Rule loves development. Matt Rule has said he doesn't want a guy who's going to be here for a year. And, Jalen Gramstead, I believe, has 2 years left of eligibility, maybe.
I think it's just one. I could be wrong on that, but I think he just had one.
You might be right, because it's just weird knowing how that works with the NAIA stuff. It's hard to find information on those schools in there. So with that, you're going to want to get your 5-star QB developing, because the big jump is from year 2 to year 3, right? So you need that guy with the keys to your franchise or keys to your program ready to go by year 3. So he really needs that year of experience under his belt. Now, in this case, if this was a situation where Nebraska's in win now, I still think that Raiola is probably the better quarterback. I know, Gramstead's more experienced, but in that case, I think you would have a little bit more of a discussion. But whereas Nebraska's kind of in a long, slower build, especially for next season, Matt Rule just came out again on Joe Klatt's show, said the jump he expects is from year 2 to year 3 as well, or the big jump. But so that's my take on it. I just think you got to go with the guy that's going to be developing, and the guy who you see as the future, and the guy that's going to lead you back to that. That's got to be the guy you go with.
Oh, I 100% agree. And I'll also say, look at this, in all respect to your question, Bradley. I also think it might not be as simple as just looking at 5-star incoming guy or the NAIA guy. I think something really important to look at is like, how are they looking in practice, in scrimmages? And I feel like Dylan Raiola did. He blew me away in the spring game. Obviously had high expectations, but I think he did really well. And so I think it really comes down to a lot of like, how are they performing? And I do agree with you that developmentally, that's a really important thing to get Raiola in developing, to get out some of those kinks and lumps, right?
Yeah.
And so that's just kind of me. But I also think if you are in like the win now mode, is like, what are you going to what's it looking like in practice? What's your, and that's kind of just my thoughts of just looking at how are they performing in scrimmages. That's something I'll say as someone who has had the privilege to visit a Matt Rule football practice. I've visited a couple Division I football practices kind of in the Midwest area.
Yep.
Something I'll say that Matt Rule does, I'll say I think he did better than the previous regime at Nebraska and better than pretty much everywhere that I've went, is those players are always busy doing something. And a lot of that is the way they structure things, as much support staff. And I understand every Division I Power 5 program has a lot of support staff, but it's the way they use them and having all 3 fields going. So for example, when I went there last August, right, they had 3 separate scrimmages going on at the same time. Okay. And I thought that's something I'll say, like, you don't see that everywhere.
No,
you don't. And a lot of coaches, and I've coached, they say, oh, we're going to keep this thing busy all the time. But that's not all what, you may think you are, but I'll say seeing it in person, they keep those guys busy. Every individual drill has 3 guys are going at once. And I think that's a really big part of the development that we're seeing at Nebraska. Comes from the practice structure that they have. So I will say that I think Nebraska gets a good better view than I feel like a lot of programs do at how some of those younger players are developing, because you get to see so many live reps. So like
Yeah.
if you just had one field going, like I'd say most high schools or smaller colleges too. A lot of the bigger ones will have two going at the same time. But let's
Yep.
just say you have one or two going. All those young guys are kind of rotating in there. But when you have all three going at the same time, because although as a head coach or quarterbacks coach, you might not be able to watch all three. You're filming all of them. So as soon as practice is done, you get done with your meetings, you go through and look through all those, and you can see you have an hour or however long of scrimmage live reps going for all three quarterbacks in rotation. So I think
Yep.
that's a really big thing. I think that helps the way our practices are structured here at Nebraska in terms of getting a good look at those guys.
Yeah, and kinda like, Matt Rule says, you get better at football by playing football, and
Yes.
so, yeah, they split them into 6 teams, had them going on
Mhm.
3 separate
Mhm.
fields. They had the injured guys kind of over there coaching on the sidelines, the
I
more
love I
experienced
love
guys.
that, by the way.
Yes.
I've decided, so I'll just kind of throw this out there. One of
Yeah,
the
go ahead.
biggest goals I have in my life is I'm going to be a head high school football coach one day. Like that's a goal I've had since I was a young child, right?
Yeah,
Something that I am 100% stealing this, whether it's in the spring or like the early part of fall, just splitting up these teams and going. Because I think it has been fantastic for the competition, kind of figuring out who some of your leaders are. I do like how he kind of had some of those players like being able to get drafted and switch in between those teams. I thought that was awesome because then you're
yeah,
really going to see like, hey, who do our key players, who do they want to play with?
yep.
Because you're not doing favoritism at that point because they're trying to win this thing. So like, who do they want? I thought that was a really cool thing that they did this spring. And it's something I am no shame in saying this. I'm 100% stealing that one
I mean, it
day.
it it works, and like Matt Rule makes a lot of sense in the way he goes about it, and like we said,
Hmm.
it worked before. It's different if it's something new, but this is stuff that he's done before, and it's stuff
Yeah.
that, like, he's learned as a developmental coach. You wanna basically take, especially at the high school programs where it's development is
Hmm.
that the most paramount, is you really wanna take those philosophies and from a developmental coach and really kind of implement them and just play with them, plug and play and see what works for you because we all take inspiration from others. Every bit of coaching is inspired by another
Yes.
coach from the past. So it's one of those things. It's like you take the good and you leave the bad. But he's doing a lot of good right now, especially with that development side of things. But yeah, just a great overall feel there, and decision there and especially even the winter mat drills where he had the players getting points for things that they didn't want to do, going to other sporting events, doing these things to see who would be battling the grind, who would do the stuff and get out and do the stuff that they didn't want to do because they're in a competition and because
Hmm.
they want to lead. So a lot of good stuff there, and it's just but it's stuff that you don't set the leaders, right? The leaders
Yes.
kind of they find themselves, and the
Hmm.
leaders stand out above the rest, and they show their face. And so it's like just the system he has in place is very good. And it's one of the reasons why Nebraska returns the most, you know, players, or the least amount in the transfer portal this
Oh
past
yeah.
offseason because a lot of players see that development.
Hmm.
Predictions on how long before Nebraska will make the playoffs. That's such a tough one, but with this new playoff,
Hey, I think it's not that. I don't think it's as far away as what it is with
I
the
think it
12
could
team playoff.
potentially I think it could depending on the schedule,
Hmm.
year 3 or 4,
Hmm.
potentially. But
Hmm.
I would say year 4.
Yeah. So I'll say one of the jokes I've had, and I am joking, but I have to be optimistic about Nebraska football or it will just eat me alive, right? One of the jokes I've always said, I don't think it's going to be, but I've been saying this and I've been preaching it to everyone that will listen. Playoffs 20, or I mean, bowl game 24, playoffs 25, semifinals 26, natty 27.
I
Uh,
like it. I like it.
Again, I am half kidding, but
Yeah,
that's
and
just
I
kind of
just
what
saw
I've been preaching out to everybody.
this comment said will make the playoffs. I thought it was competing for it. So I think we'll be potentially competing next year. We'll
Hmm.
be close,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
I still think we'll be on the outside looking in by a
Hmm.
decent amount. I think year 4 is when we're gonna start
Yeah.
to really, kind of be in that conversation
Mhm.
potentially coming into the season. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
but of course, this season is gonna put a lot of weight in that. Wins and losses are, you gotta year 1, I came out of year 1 saying, "I think the improvement to me isn't on a win-loss basis. It's on a list of
Yes.
how many things were broken under Scott Frost." Okay? Now let's take that list and then let's compare it to Matt Rule's first offseason. Is that list smaller? Yes, by a long shot. What was the one or two things that kind of reared the ugly head? What, turnovers and inconsistent just play against, again, we come out against Michigan and we just kind of early on in that game just shit the bed because
Yeah.
you come out and you throw an interception. They got 14 points before there's 3 minutes gone. You're already out of that game. So just a little bit of inconsistencies and get in those big games and just being able to kind of put your foot on their throat and be able to win those games. But again, that's a process that comes with the culture change and building that winning mentality that they didn't have under Frost. And so all those things are kind of starting to rear their head. And I think now we're in the point where we can start getting into like, okay, I think we need X amount of wins because now they're going to matter. Year two, people aren't going to say, well, he takes a jump in year two and then another one in year three. People aren't going to be talking about the year three jump unless we make a year two jump. So
100%. And I feel like this season is very important, not just for recruit. I just feel like everything, because let's be real, in the new Big Ten, this is about as good of a schedule as we're going to get.
yeah.
So I feel like this is an important year to try and get some wins on the board.
Yep. First off, shout out to Wilson Dittman coming in here. You go check out his stuff too. You probably do. You've seen him on here. You see me over there, and so everybody who's watching, make sure you go check out his stuff. A lot of recruiting updates over there too. So go check that out. Dion's a fan, of course. Dion's probably one of my favorite dudes on here. Dion's everywhere, man. Watching Tuesday, must see TV at the Voice College Football. Tuesdays are stacked. Michigan show after this. If y'all want to go check that out, a lot of good stuff going over there on the Michigan channel. Their show's being kind of redone and reworked, and it's improving a lot. So a lot of good stuff going over there. If y'all want to go check that out and keep up to date on your Big Ten brethren over there. Go blue, Dion with the go blue. All right. We're getting a little bit out of the red here, but what about a 4-star hindsight? Do you start him, Heinrich Harburg? Yeah, Heinrich Harburg. You don't start Heinrich. We want Heinrich to be unlocked as an athlete. And
I talking what we were talking about with some of the recruits. I feel like Heinrich Harburg is one of the prototypical Matt Rule guys. And I think that's a big reason why getting Jalen Gramstad was such a big deal is because now we have another guy that has some sort of leadership, some experience. Now, granted, it's at a lower level, and we can kind of get into why I think Jalen Gramstad's a great fit. But I think having him now lets us do a lot more things with Harburg. Because I feel like before we had him, although we want to use him in ways that will show him, I think he would be a fantastic Wildcat back, right? But we would have to be a little bit careful on how we did some things because I feel like he was very important to have as QB2.
Yes.
Right. And I do think he is very important. Don't get me wrong on that. But I think we can kind of be a little bit more aggressive on how we use him now. We don't have to save him from quite as many hits because we do have another quality quarterback in the room now.
Absolutely. Yeah. And another thing with Gramstad, he is a perfect Matt Rule player as well because he has the mind, right? He wanted to be a coach. His goal is to be a coach. And so you get a guy like that in your room. So you got a good football mind in there to help mentor the young guys. And then not only that, Matt Rule also likes to take these guys and put them on his staff, when they graduate. And so Jalen Gramstad could be another key guy that maybe is added to the staff to help mentor these young QBs even further. So it's good for them to build the relationships now and be able to kind of work with him so they can see if that's something that they want to introduce, in the future when he graduates.
Yes, I could be wrong completely, but I fully expect him to be a grad assistant at Nebraska, especially the fact he's wanted to be a Cornhusker his whole life. He won me over completely on that, right?
Yeah.
The fact he wants to be a coach. And just a quick little thing about him that I've kind of seen some things about like, oh, how big of the drop off from the NAIA level to Power 5 football. And I do understand that the talent wise, that is a drop off. There's no argument for me on that. But I think the biggest thing why I like him and having him in the room is the biggest thing I think is showing him, because at the high school level, for example, I will just tell you I've coached in some big programs, right?
Yeah.
we script these quarterbacks so heavy and make these reads so easy on these high school quarterbacks. And I'm not dissing on any. It's all over the
It's the nature
country.
of the beast, though. Yeah.
Yes, is who do I trust more? The 16, 17-year-old trying to read this defense or me in the booth, right? So what
Yep.
we're doing is just saying, "Hey, here's your read. If this corner sits, you're hitting the post over the top, or if he bails, you're hitting this drag route." Like, we make it super simple. So the fact that we now have another quarterback on our in our room that has shown the ability past the high school level to be able to read a defense, I think is tremendous. And I'm not throwing any shade at any of our freshman quarterbacks. I'm just saying, like, it's a whole different ballgame at the college level, even at the smaller college level. Like, these
Yep.
defensive coaches are fantastic. You got a little bit more to work with because even at a smaller level, like, you're still dealing with like some of the best in the country. You're only
Yep.
dealing with the percentage, so you can do a lot more things with them. And I think that's a really big deal. I think that's a really big deal, having a quarterback in the room that has read a defense past the high school level.
100%. 100% agree. Yeah, and that's one of the things that kind of they were talking about. They were working with the quarterbacks before Gramstead came in earlier this offseason, especially with Raiola. Like, they wanted to give him, and this happens with the 3-3-5 more than anything. They give him different looks, but also,
Mhm.
you know, change up the shells, kind
Yeah.
of mix it up, maybe do like a rotation over, maybe you look like a man covers, you drop it to quarters or something like that. Um, but they want to make him make the extra play. And so they want to make sure that whatever the initial read is and make him play off script. And that's what they were
Yeah.
trying to simulate in practice. And it's for that reason, because a lot of what they do at the high school level is just very much set up for them to succeed. And then they got to start reading pre-snap, because you get guys that go from college to the NFL that still struggle reading
Yes.
pre-snap
Yes.
coverages and understanding, the rotations and knowing exactly what to look for.
Mhm.
And so that's one of those things where it's like they have to develop that. And with a true freshman like he did, I think that was necessary. What they did there, and it showed in the spring game. There were a couple
Yeah.
of throws he had to make off beat, and he made dang good throws on them. And
And I
so,
think facing not just our defensive players, but our defensive scheme every day in practice is a huge deal. So I'll tell you, someone who's coached in the 3-3 defense and against the 3-3 defense, here's how I always explain it to people that may not understand as well. So imagine, just go along with the journey here. You're coaching against or you're playing quarterback against a 4-3 defense, right? Okay, these four guys are probably coming at me, the defensive linemen. These three linebackers, they're either showing blitz, or if they do blitz, it'll be kind of a late blitz. You probably
yeah,
know they're dropping back into a coverage here. Now
right,
imagine the 3-3 stack. You only know these three players are coming, and all the eight guys. One, two, maybe three of them are going to come at you. You don't know
mhm,
when. You don't know who. You don't.
yep,
They're moving pre-snap.
yep,
So there's just so many different things. So I think that's really good at being able to read and get off beat, because you don't know what you're going to expect, and that's something I've always I'll just tell you, coaching against as an offensive coach, coaching against the 3-3 stack has been a pain in my ass. Just
yeah,
because trying to get quarterbacks, especially younger quarterbacks, and I throw college freshmen in this as well, of just, you don't know where they're just so many different things you can do with them.
yeah,
And I feel like going against that every day is I feel like that's a good thing for his development.
100% agreed. Yeah, because the he will never get the amount of different looks. The 3-3-5 is going to have the most different looks as far as schematics and what he's going to be
Mhm.
looking at in front of him more than any other defense. And so he's seen basically every front probably possible that he can in general. And of course, they're going to scout the other styles of defense too. But I think if you can figure out how to operate going against the 3-5, you can do a good job of operating against most
Mhm.
other defenses in terms of just understanding what you're looking at. And so, like you said, it's just that big learning curve there. Most important game to win this year.
Hey, I'll give a shout out. That is my younger brother. He's a student at the University of
Oh,
Nebraska, so I'll give a
nice.
shout out. What's up, Fletcher?
What's going on, Fletcher? How you doing, man? So I'll let you take this question first.
Mhm.
What is the most important game to win
Okay, so
for you?
as the football coach in me, I want to just say, "Oh, game one, UTEP," but I can look past that a little bit. This is kind of more from a fan's perspective. I'd say Colorado, and not just because it's a rivalry game, not because any of that. Here's why I say Colorado is no matter what you think about how Colorado's going to do, I've seen there's predictions all over the place with that polarizing team, right? Some
Yeah,
think they're going to be amazing, some think they're going to be terrible. I think one thing you cannot deny, though, is they have athletes, especially at the skill position. I
yeah,
think no matter, even if you think they're not going to win a game this year, I don't see how you can deny that.
yeah,
So something that I'm obviously I want to win that game more than probably any of them. I think that will be a really good test for us. Our defensive, how do we do against the pass and against the speed? That's
yeah.
something that although I am obviously looking at the scoreboard, I'm more interested to see on how does our man coverage look against those athletes.
Correct. Yep.
And something that Nebraska did do towards the back end of that season is they mixed in a lot of more man coverage. They were about 50-50, I'd say, between cover three, cover one. And although those are similar looks, they're still two different concepts.
Exactly.
And I want to see how our cover one looks do against Colorado. That's something that I'm really interested in seeing. Because like I said, no matter what you think about them as a team overall, I I think you can't deny that they have speed and athleticism at those skill positions.
Yeah.
So how does our secondary match up against that?
Correct. Yeah. I think Colorado is very important for a number of
Mhm.
reasons. And I'll give you my answer in just a second. But you know, just trying to not answer Colorado. But one of the other reasons why it's very important is just it's Dylan Raiola's, and I want to say this in a way where people don't think, because I'm not like looking past Colorado. I just don't think
Mhm.
Colorado's enough of a unit to beat Nebraska
Mhm.
right now. Losing 40 players in the portal isn't going to do
Mhm.
that. They were under on scholarships. I think they were at 72 when I checked 3 weeks ago of the 85 limit.
Yeah, I saw a
So,
thing from Husker. Sorry to cut you off, but
no,
I
you're good.
saw a thing the other day that Nebraska might have more incoming or more freshmen, including redshirt and true freshmen, than Colorado ends up having on their roster. That may
Yeah,
end
I
up
think
switching,
82.
but that's crazy.
I think Nebraska's 82 freshmen. That's what Matt Rule said
Mhm.
on the thing with Joel Klatt yesterday.
Yeah.
But it gives him a potential to get in there and have a primetime game against a team that isn't necessarily like it's going to be a huge game, almost as if Ohio State or Michigan was there, but it's not an Ohio State or Michigan. So he gets a chance to go out there against a team that Nebraska opened as a 6.5 point favorite against, go out there in prime time and be able to get that under his belt, get that big
Mhm.
game environment, that prime time environment under his belt so he sees what that's like against a team that probably will be a lot more favorable than other primetime games he will
Mhm.
face. I personally look to USC. And the reason I
Mhm.
look to USC, and let me put our overlay back up here so you can see who we are. Um, One of the reasons I look at USC as that game is because I think USC right now is the ultimate kind of like, in fighting terms, we call it a gatekeeper, right? A
Mhm. Mhm.
gatekeeper is somebody who's not quite good enough to win it all, right? But they're right there, and they'll probably never win it all, but they're that test for the younger people to come up, the prospects to come up and fight to see if they can beat the legend, the experienced guy going. So in a way, to me, they are that because they're working their way back up too, but they're kind of ahead of kind of where
Mhm.
Nebraska is in terms of that process. And theirs is just it's a defense that is going through a defensive change and transition. So can Nebraska, with their good defense going up against a defense that's probably not going to be as good as theirs, but with an offense that's going to be probably pretty good. Miller Moss is a really good quarterback to be able to go in there and keep up with that offense and be able to take one of those games in a stretch that's going to be very, very difficult.
Mhm.
You have Ohio State, USC, UCLA, Wisconsin, and Iowa all right there at the
Yeah.
back end of the
Yeah.
schedule. And so you don't want to run off another instance where you lose in the back half of that schedule because a lot of people are going to pay attention to how Nebraska finishes. I think the USC game is very good to set the tone and see, because I think that win would look very good
Mhm.
on Nebraska's resume. So, and I just think that would set us up for the rest of the season pretty well, and that we won't have that panic setting in, like, oh, late
Mhm.
season collapse and all this other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think the USC might be a good game to prevent an eventual slide or anything like that. So it's USC for me outside of Colorado. I'll be at the Colorado game. If y'all are going to be out there, me and my family got a party bus. It's going to take us from Lake House out to the stadium and then back to the Lake House after the game. So
That's sick.
um, Justin says Colorado, and the other Justin, not me. Wilson agrees. One more $21 million salary cap. One thing we know about this changing college football landscape is nothing. We don't know crap until it changes. But
Yes.
I do see that coming because
Mhm,
something similar. The more and more this gets to a NFL feel, the college football has become a business at this point. So
mhm.
it's inevitable. You got to find a middle ground. Can never have too many QBs. 100%, Jason.
Yeah.
Agreed. Jackson, what's good, man? Usually the first comment. You slacking today, bro. You're down here in the middle now. How will Nebraska benefit from the players being employees receiving money from that $20 million pool? Man, that's tough because yeah, I don't know how. It's a hard way to
Yeah.
answer that question because it's really more of like a kind of a almost like a rhetorical question in a way. But if that's the case, like if that's going to be officially brought down, we'll talk about it. They're also talking about the actual player limitations and bringing the overall roster size down to 95, which
I
mean,
before you keep
go ahead,
going,
go ahead.
I just wanna say I absolutely hate that, and I think there's a chance that it does happen, but am I just wanna throw this out there, not that anyone cares about my opinion, but I am 100% against this,
Yes,
just from my perspective. I think it's a terribly dumb move, and it does help that I heard Matt Rule is against this as well,
yeah.
but I just think from my own perspective, I think that that's incredibly I I kinda understand, I guess, some of the logic, but I think it's stupid in my opinion.
I think it's a Band-Aid to fix the
Yes.
problem, and that's what it is. It's just a Band-Aid to fix the problem, and what it's gonna hurt is it's gonna hurt the actual players coming out of high school. It's gonna be less
Yes.
opportunities for them. But, kind of like you said, get it with the whole potential loophole process of paying NIL as a scholarship
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So, I get it,
But I
but
I
it's
also
just
just feel like if you have a kid that gets so, like, depending on when this cutoff is, like, here's your 95 set or whatever, it's like, hey, if you have a kid that has a season-ending injury right before then, like, you're supposed to just cut him from your team? Like, is that what we're wanting to do to these young athletes?
yes,
That's kind of my perspective is like, is that really what we're trying to do here? Is, hey, I'm so sorry you just got hurt, and I know you've dedicated your whole life to this, but for roster purposes, we have to cut you from our team now. I don't know.
100%.
I just feel like that's a stupid way to. I feel like there has to be a better solution.
Yep.
I'm personally not smart enough to figure out what that solution is, but I feel like I'm smart enough to feel like this isn't it.
Yeah, I don't know if the NCAA is smart enough to figure it out either, to be honest with you. So, I think we might have a better shot than them. Moose, what's going on, Moose? Appreciate you hopping in here as always. Moose is a Michigan fan, as you can see, but he rocks with us over here, so we like him. Willis McGahee, fourth enrolled in January. Looking for any feedback on him so far? Not a ton, not a ton. We're not a lot of word out on him, but
I do
I
think he
can
is a guy that could developmentally really get there. I feel like he has all the physical tools, not just because of his
unbelievable,
bloodline, but just hey, if you look at that, I forgot off the top of my head what, but like if you look at just like his 100-meter dash time for his
yes.
size, it's like, dude, that's an athlete right there.
Dude, he is going to be very, very good.
Yeah,
And you talk about the lineage though, but that does matter when it comes to athleticism. We
yeah,
see it so many times, and that's what Matt Rule loves. Sonny has figured out the cheat code here to get Nebraska fans to like stuff. So
ah,
Sonny's an Illinois fan. So he's
might
my
have to
co-host on the Big Ten show. But hit the like button if Nebraska starts the season 7-0. We are, so hit the like button.
might have to go make some new accounts and click like
Yeah,
them.
right. We don't even know what governing body will exist to make the NIL salary cap rules exactly. There's so much that needs to change before
Yeah,
that even happens, and they can't even figure out how many teams they want in the playoff yet. So
yeah, 100%.
don't tell Erica, but I'm picking Nebraska to be Iowa, Wisconsin. Hey, I won't tell, but Moose, I appreciate you. That's a solid. I'll get that off the screen before she sees. All right. Still don't agree with paying players. If you're on scholarship, you already get a free education being paid. I disagree on this. I've always thought the athletes should be paid because the way I see it, they are under a lot of stress because they have to travel and do practices and all this other stuff on top of going to school and still maintaining their grades. And they are literally they worked their tail off that entire time to not only have the grades and the ability to get into school, but also have this ability to play football. And with how much the NCAA and everybody was making off of these kids, like we can't sit here and say we would rather the NCAA get that money because I would.
Yeah, yeah, I'm
So
100% with you on that.
yeah, the NCAA, they're a corrupt organization. I don't think they. I don't think they deserve it. I think it should go to the players because like
Mhm.
players are making money off of their names. So
Yeah.
I mean the NCAA. So all right. Let's go ahead. Let's see. Drop any more questions if y'all have them. I'm going to go ahead and just ask you just a quick another question here before we try to go to conclude. So, you talked about your expectation of Fedoni.
Mhm.
What is it that you saw in Fedoni that makes you think that he's going to be unlocked a lot more this year in the offense?
I think that having a really good tight end can be the ultimate safety net in any offense. And what I mean by that is so quarterback just coaching your quarterbacking 101 is something you want to do if you have a really good player is get them the ball early, keep them engaged in the game, right?
Yep.
And if you're looking at a running back, hey, it's pretty simple. You either hand the ball to him or you can give a little dump pass off, whatever. I think the tight end or the slot receiver position, but the tight end is fairly easy to also get them involved in the game.
Yeah.
It's not just because of the distance. So if you're looking at like an outside, and I think our outside receivers are also going to have a really good year. But when I'm kind of looking at how do we keep our tight end engaged throughout the whole game is if you have a really good wide receiver, you can do a lot of different things to more or less kind of slow them or take them out of the game. One of the basic things you'll see is just a rollover cover two coverage where you just have the corner, you have safety over the top, corner jam the shit out of him at the line, and then safety coming down right over the top and taking him. That's really tough to handle, and you just don't have as much space.
Yeah.
Like they're all the way out there. Like it's something I've always said coaching. When I coached middle school basketball, I told them the same thing. The sideline's undefeated, best defender of all time. So you just have less space to work with. And there's so many things you can do that outside receiver. You can also just do a man free rollover where that free safety in the middle just basically is only making sure that your best receiver doesn't get past. And I'm a cover three guy, so you can also do what you call a cover three cloud coverage, where the corner ends up taking the flat, and then you have a safety going over the top.
Mhm.
And you just have so many things you can do to that outside receiver. And the reason I say that is there's just less things you can do to completely bracket off that tight end or
Yeah.
slot receiver. But I think so. I'm not making the comparison, so don't take this out of context. But if you just watch Mahomes and Kelsey on a Sunday, how many times on 3rd and 3 is Kelsey able to get 3.5 yards? And a lot of that is based on just alignment.
Yep.
And I feel like we can have some of that with Fedoni as well, of just being like, no matter what they do, I'm not saying go quite this far, but a lot of times with Mahomes and Kelsey, and you saw it with Gronkowski and Brady as well, is they're a lot of times not calling a route or whatever until you're at the line of scrimmage. You
Yeah.
see what the defense is giving you, and that's going to determine whether you're going 3 or 4 in, 3 or 4 out, just sitting, right? And I feel like Fedoni can definitely be that guy. And I feel like a lot of that is just because there's less things the defense can do to take him away. And like I kind of had said, that something with really good players, you want to get them involved early and often. And I feel like he's just the way he's built, the way he plays, and having another year of confidence under his belt, I think he could be a fantastic. I say he's the ultimate safety blanket this year, and that's why
Yeah.
I'm expecting him to have a really good year. I think he's going to have a lot of. I don't know how crazy his yards end up going, but I feel like his catches and just I know you don't track how many first downs he gets, but I think that will be really big. And like I
Yeah.
said, I do expect our outside receivers to also have a really good year. I'm just saying that I think schematically, Thomas Fedoni is going to be in a really good position because you are going to have to focus on some of those other guys. And
Yeah.
schematically, you just can't take away everything. And that's why I think he's going to have a really good year.
For sure. Yeah. And another thing too is, he's not rehabbing an injury this
Yes.
offseason. So
Yes.
he's had time to kind of work his way in and kind of get in, really good shape and kind of get a full strength and conditioning cycle. So yeah, expect to see a lot of good from him.
Mhm.
20 likes. Oh yeah, the refresh button. 20 likes, still not enough. Y'all got to keep it rolling, keep it rolling. It's fine. Without arguing about the NCAA, they're greedy. 5-10 years won't be able to watch college football without paying. Yeah, I think we're already
I
at
am
that
I
point.
am I am kind of worried about some of the.
We already can't
Yeah,
watch it without paying. We got
yes,
17 different networks.
I agree. I am at least thankful that what I can't remember what some program a couple tried to do more of like the pay-per-view model for some of those lower, like I know an Oklahoma game a couple years ago you had to pay like $20 or something to watch that. I'm so glad that failed. I'm so
Yeah,
glad that failed, just
me too.
because I'm worried about that in a future one day. I don't think it's any near future, but hey, if that would have done well, I think we would have seen that more. So I'm
Not
very
with
glad
this
that failed.
economy. Not with this economy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you ain't gonna they ain't gonna take that lightly. No.
Yes.
Nebraska's sack leader this season. Do you
Mm,
have an opinion on who you think it might be?
So I want to say Polar Bear, right? That's who I think the obvious answer is. But I do think with how good he has been and all the national attention he's gotten, I don't I'm interested to see how teams scheme against him this year. Do other coaches think he is good enough? I think he is, but do other coaches think he's good enough that you have to completely game plan your entire game around
They
him?
better.
I I 100% agree. If they do not, I think he is going to absolutely lead this team in sacks. And I think even if they do, I still think he can. But I also think Ty Robinson is also an absolute animal out there, which
Yeah.
is why I think you can't just completely focus. I think that's why I really like having both of them back. Is
Yeah.
not just one, is because you can't completely just, hey, we take this guy, you take Hutmacher away, you're fine because you still got a beast coming off the edge.
Yep. Exactly. And I think people, I think the nation knows Hutmacher's there, and they're
Yeah.
going to try to do whatever they can to take him out of the game, which is going to open up time more.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to pick one of the edge rushers, but we have no idea how this rotation is going to be with the linebacker depth now, and how much they're going to rotate and how often they're going to bring people off the edges in terms of just one specific person, or if they're just going to kind of keep it rotating. Because we got guys like, I love Stephon Thompson, linebacker coming in for Syracuse, one of my favorite players on this defense. Probably my favorite guy we got in the portal outside of Jamal Banks. Blyhill, of course. I've talked about him, but of course he's injured coming the season. But it's just one of those guys that I think has the ability. He's smaller, of course, being an outside linebacker previously, but he has the ability and the size to be able to still kind of get off in a speed rush. You can bring him in to mix it up every now and then. It doesn't always have to be a long rangy, lengthy guy. Sometimes you want to get those guys off the edge with some speed, and with these linebacker groups, those are the guys that are going to be rotating. Defensive backs especially, because with the 3-5, it's basically you take a defensive lineman, replace it with a defensive back. But yeah, I want to lean towards one of these edge rush guys, but I can't.
I do agree. I'm also curious to see how much early in the season we kind of switch our shell a little bit, and because at the beginning of the season we didn't do it as much as we did on the back half of the season, as having one of those outside linebackers walked up off the edge. I mean, we definitely saw it, but we didn't see it as much. So I'm curious to see how much that rolls over from the end of last season into the beginning of this season, is how much we kind of change our shell up. Because honestly, when you're looking at it, a lot of times it looked like a 4-2-5 shell.
Yes.
And that's I am curious to see. I think if we do that a lot more this season, I do think it'll be one of the edge rushers having a whole bunch of sacks. I'm just curious to see what that looks like at the first part of the season.
Yep. And Jason kind of, echoes that sentiment. There's so many wonderful additions, unknowns on the D-line, outside linebacker. So jealous but happy for you guys telling appreciate that, man. Not a Go Big Red fan, very national perspectives. This pisses me off because I love DC White and believe in rule. Like number 27. I appreciate you, LFG. Thanks for stopping in here as usual, man. Appreciate you, and appreciate the shout out on getting Mr. Kahana Torres. Jamari Butler for the second year in a row is my pick. NFL type of year, I'm hoping. Jamari Butler's a very strong pick.
Yeah.
Very strong pick.
He's going to be a dude.
Yeah. And that is true. He does fly under the radar with a lot of people. He's not a name that gets thrown around a lot.
Yes, as soon as I saw that comment, I would literally in my head was like, dude, how did I not mention him?
Yeah. I'm not mentioning anybody just because I don't want to leave anybody off, because I just feel like there's so many players, but Jamari Butler definitely a strong pick. Somebody had the JUCO Dean Williams on their podcast. An impressive kid. I think he could flash. I agree. Thought you were a Husker fan. LFG. No, LFG's just in here to help us out. Oh, here's the second one. I believe without a doubt Nebraska making noticeable jump 24. Fight for the Nebby in the comments. Different content creators pick against the Skurs in the pickup type matchups. See Butler, Butler as well as Roger. I hope I pronounced that right, Roger, or Rog. I just don't want to. I think it's Roger. I don't know. I'm bad with names, dude. I hate not being able to pronounce people's names.
I never have anyone pronounce my last name correctly, so I get it.
Dion, absolutely not. I'm not overlooking Rutgers. I have Rutgers as our first loss on the schedule. Okay. What Greg Schiano has done at Rutgers is unbelievable. Talk about not getting enough credit. Greg Schiano does not get enough credit for what he's done at Rutgers. They play a physical, brand of football, which is the norm in New Jersey with their high school football. They play a very physical brand of football. That team is very physical. That is going to make them tough. Ethan Kaliakmanis is over at Rutgers. Ethan Kaliakmanis, not the best quarterback in the world, but 2-0 against Nebraska. So Rutgers is a very sneaky. I think it's our most difficult team in our first 7 games. I think it's our most difficult game.
This isn't the typical Rutgers team of the past however many
No,
years.
no,
This
Rutgers
is
is
a much
getting
improved
better.
team.
They're getting better.
Yeah.
Significantly better. So, yeah, time for people to wake up on Rutgers. So, Dion, I'm right there with you. All right. Well, we are fist bump. Prior Rutgers is no joke. Exactly. All right, cool. So if y'all got any more questions, just drop them in here before we hop off. Just a couple of housekeeping things. Again, if you like what we're doing here, please like and subscribe, and kind of be on the lookout for what's coming up. Just to let y'all know a couple things that I have coming up. Anthony Grant will be coming on in the near future. So I'm trying to decide whether I want to do a video or a live stream with him. So y'all kind of let me know what y'all think, whether you want a video or a live stream or a couple of videos. So me and him are in touch, and so we'll get that scheduled out and planned for y'all. So stay tuned for that. A couple more player interviews coming after that as well. So yeah, we have that going on. And then of course, over at the Voice of College Football Twitter page, if y'all want to slide on over there, it helps us out. Like I said, I'm doing graphics over there. I'm doing rankings and stuff like that. So if y'all want to get involved in that and be able to see the rankings and share and join the conversation, go ahead and hop over there. And Rutgers recruiting at a high level too. Yeah. And Shiano's the only guy that can do that at Rutgers. Shiano is the guy that can do that at Rutgers. Like he is made for that position. And so if Rutgers loses Shiano, we'll see how it goes after that. But Wilson, appreciate you hopping in here. It's my game. Most important is Rutgers. Yeah, I have that. I have that as my first loss on my schedule prediction I did a while back. So yeah, Rutgers is very, very tough. So all right. Originally I wanted Tony White as head coach for UCLA. Yeah, I
thought that was going to happen.
I didn't. And I was one of the few people that I think didn't, but it also could have been wishful thinking. But I think there's going to be a better opportunity for him. And
I can't disagree with that.
But his alma mater, that's tough.
Yeah.
That is tough.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, Coach B, I appreciate you coming on here, man. Do you want to, again, just tell the people where they can find you? And please go check his stuff out. It's really good stuff over there. He's just starting out. So I really want y'all to kind of get over there and help him out and be able to, check out some of his stuff and see if you like it. Drop some comments. Let him know what you think as he's trying to grow and evolve as a content creator. So all the feedback helps him as well. But do you want to go ahead and tell them where they can find you again?
Yeah. So if you enjoy watching like the YouTube stuff, just go check out my YouTube page, the BA Coaches Show. And something I also kind of want to give a little shout out to is I've kind of partnered with the guys at NBNR podcast. A lot of you guys have probably watched them. They recently revamped their website quite a bit, and I'm doing all the blog writing on there. So they have a little blog section on their website now. I'm putting out blogs once, twice a week talking Nebraska football. So if you're also more of a reader type thing, check that out as well. Because kind of like you said, as I'm starting out through this, sometimes I'm still trying to get used to the whole talking to the camera, not rambling as much.
Yeah.
My written thoughts are sometimes a little bit more concise, if that makes sense, like not as much rambling. So definitely check that out. And the other thing you need to do when you're on nbnrpodcast.com is also check out their online forum. I know there's lots of forums out there, but theirs is completely free. All you got to do is make a membership on there. I've been on there almost every day talking sports. So just want to also give a shout out to those guys. But anywhere you find me on social media, it's at the BA Coaches Show for literally any social media form you can think of. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. I even have a TikTok. I need to be better about posting stuff on TikTok. It kind of gets neglected a little bit, but basically anywhere. And I just enjoy talking Husker sports all the time. At some point in my life, Husker football is all I had. And now I do have more than that, with wife and kids and all that, but I do enjoy it pretty much more than anything else. So that's something I'm very passionate about. And I do provide a unique perspective as a high school football coach and as a younger fan, because I know I do have the wife and kids, but I'm still pretty young. So I didn't get to experience a lot of the good glory days that a lot of older fans got to.
Yeah.
So I do think I provide that at least a little. My expectations aren't national championships.
Yes.
If you ask my dad or my grandpa, they're like, hey, Nebraska needs to go back. I'm like, that's not my expectation because I can get to live through that. So I do think that is kind of the yes.
Let's get 6 first. Yeah, but
hey, Nebraska wins 6 games this year. I'm getting the tattoo of the N right on my bicep.
Oh Lord. Okay. All right. We're going there. We're going there. All right. You heard it here first. I'll clip that for later. So, no, but that's awesome. Appreciate it. You know, you're really down to earth guy, and I could tell that from the jump. So I think people are really going to like your stuff. So yeah, go check him out. And the last thing here, I've been brought on to the Character Chronicles website under Adam Character's Crew. So if y'all do want to go check out the Character Chronicles over there, please do. I'll be recording with him next month, potentially July 25th, but I might go to Big Ten Media Days. So we'll see on that. So stay tuned. But yeah, a lot of good stuff coming up for y'all. So y'all be on the lookout for that. Get over there, check out characterchronicles.com as well, along with the Voice of College Football stuff. So that'll do it for us here. Again, appreciate Coach BA coming on here. And yeah, it was a good show. Enjoyed having you on, and we'll probably have him on again. So we'll see you next time.
Thank you for having me. This was great.
Of course, man. Yep. Take care. And like I said, we'll see you next time in the next video. And then like I said, I'll keep you updated. We'll probably have him back on in future, and I'll be coming on to his show as well. So y'all stay tuned for that. So see you in the next video. Peace.